Hello and welcome back to my little studio here in sunny North Wales. Well, it was this morning. Today I'm going to be doing a picture in the style of Ron Ranson. This is an old photograph that I found lying around when I was tidying the studio up. I think I've painted it before, but I can't remember when. In fact, I'm not even sure where it is. But it's got certain elements. It's got a messy foreground, it's got a little hut, it's got some bushy trees, distant hills, and a very boring sky, which I'll do something about. I will change things round and make it different while I'm doing it. The main thing that I want to play with today is painting in the style of Ron Ranson. Ron Ranson, one of my heroes, he changed the whole ethos of watercolour painting by starting to use these amazing brushes called Hakes. You've probably seen them, heard of them, but they're what I'm going to be using. One of those is good, one of them isn't. I need a new one. Somebody buy a picture, I can buy a new Hake. Right, there we go. That's those. The other brushes he used were a 1-inch synthetic, which is very handy for doing tight little roofs and things like that. It gets a very hard edge, that very sharp edge, and a rigger. Doesn't look very thin, but when you wet it and flick it, you have a very pointy little brush. So there we go. Big brush, little brush, middle brush is basically what we're going to do. Ron Ranson palette. He advised people not to use fiddly little palettes, but use butcher's trays, baker's trays, whatever these are. I had a slight accident with my palette, so the colours are running about a bit, but never mind. 7 colours: lemon yellow, raw sienna, light red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and Payne's grey. So those are the colours. The only other thing which you need to use is a towel. You need that for controlling the water in the Hake, because Hakes use an awful lot of water. So without any further ado, I'm going to actually put in a little sketch, because I'm changing this round. I'll still keep my little hut in it, but I'll take it slightly lower. I'll bring the hills down to about here. I want a lot of sky. My hut, cottage, whatever it is, so a lot of it is very horizontal. I'm going to make the water go a lot further across. And that tree over there I'll make little bit bigger. And that one a little bit smaller. That's the sketch done. Don't know how much you can see. I probably won't stick very much to it anyway, but first things first. Ron always painted wet in wet to start with. Now I haven't used this Hake for a few days, so I need to get it really soaked. A dry one, very, very fluffy at the end. Now I've wet it, and you can see it comes to quite a sharp point. So off we go. Just mix a very watery mix of raw sienna, now this is very, very watery. It's just pre-wetting the paper, but with a tinge of this golden colour. I haven't taped the board down. Ron used to paint from spiral bound pads of Bockingford, and he put one of these clips at the far end just to stop it from curling up at the edges. He didn't believe in pre-stretching paper, so what I do when I'm painting in his style, when the paper is wet, this isn't Bockingford, this is Arch or Arches. I'm common, so I say Arches. If it buckles, I'll pull it tight at the corners and just tighten up the thing. I'm wittering because I'm waiting to put my sky wash on for that to go very slightly off. I'm going to have, it's a boring sky in that picture, but I'm going to make it a bit more interesting. And the other thing he did was to set himself time limits. He didn't like spending a long time fast and loose. One of the things, I've been watching a lot of his videos, or a few of his videos recently, and one thing which I may have got from him, and I hadn't realised it, is that one of the things he said, don't worry about messing it up, it's only a piece of paper. And those of you who know me will know that's one of my watchwords. Okay, I'm going to put some dirty big clouds. He also said, scare yourself with your skies. So here we go. Scary sky. Lots of colour. Remember, it will dry a lot lighter. Okay, I'm going to leave the sky like that. Hopefully it will look a bit more differenter when I've done it. Take out some of the bottom. Because that's where my hills are going to go. I know I said I was going to leave it, but that was the wrong colour completely. I've only been doing this 5 minutes and I've already broken 2 or 3 rules. Okay, done that. Now, leave that to dry just a little bit, let the sheen go off. And just tug it out a little bit, corners. And there we go. Because I'm working against the clock, I'm going to give this a blast with a hairdryer. Put your fingers in your ears. I only want to dry off the bottom end. It's still damp, but I don't want the hills to disappear too much into it. Okay, so now clean out some of the palette. And I'm going to mix a bluey green for these distant hills. Ultramarine, some of the raw sienna, some of the lemon yellow, a bit more blue, and all I'm going to do is sweep across the hills. Now, that should dry into a nice, fairly light. I'll put more of the... No, I'll do that when I come with the next layer. What I'll do now is put some shadows in. The sun's coming from this direction. And so, a bit more blue. I'm just adding blue into that green colour. Bit of the brown. Okay, now there's a shadowy bit. See how sharp that brush has gone now. Needs to be darker. I'll put some brown into the blue. Always the problem with a hake is getting your balance of your water, your ratio of water to colour. You need lots of colour because you have a lot of water, but what you don't want to do is end up putting watery paint into thick paint. You need to make sure that the paint that you're putting on in each layer is slightly darker, well not darker, thicker than your first layer. If you put runny paint into thick paint, you get runbacks, cauliflowers. If you put slightly thicker paint, the thicker paint always goes into the thinner paint. Don't mean lighter or darker, I mean more paint. There you go. You can get quite a lot of detail with these big brushes. And what I really like is the way that things blend. And see that, don't know if you can see it with the lights, but that sky has blended quite nicely. Those deep purples have turned into sort of summery cloud colours. Right, okay. Thing I'm going to do next is this banky bit. That's a technical landscape term. Banky bit, which is dead grass, and lots of, I keep going to say yellow ochre, but it's not, it's raw sienna. Some of the yellow, some palette filth into it just to tone it down. That's strange. Two people changed the way I looked at painting. Lots of other people since, but it was in the 80s that I first discovered Ron Ranson, and not long after I discovered Charlie Evans, and they made me think about watercolour in a totally different way, taking the mystique out of it and being fairly bold. I'm just putting some burnt umber dark seary bits in here. I'm not drawing anything, I'm just using tip of the brush, corner of the brush, just dabbing. I'm just using my finger to dab that colour. Now, some more of the red and the brown into that, because I want a band of light coming across there, so I need to darken some of that. Get in there, you little so-and-so. Now, that's all nice and light, so I'm going to do a fairly clear wash of the raw sienna and the lemon yellow hopefully that will shine across this white paper. There. Now, next thing I'm going to do is the little building, and I'm going to use the synthetic 1" for that. First thing I need is to make that leap out from the oranges and the browns. So, alizarin crimson, light red, touch of blue, I want it very slaty sort of coloured. That's dry. See what a sharp, delicate line you can get with that. Add some of the Payne's Grey. Leave that to dry, and yes, I don't mind some dark going into there, some bleeding. I've got the bank of this inlet pond, whatever it is, bit of water. Okay, brown and blue, touch of light red, and very dark green just in that little corner. Now, that's more or less dry up there. So I'll put in me couple of little tree bits. Okay. Dark colour, the blue and the brown. That will do for my tree trunks. See what a delicate line you can get with a hake. Just a delicate touch. I am going to have to tidy that up. Should have dried it off. Or painted it outdoors. Okay, got that. Now, mixing a sort of greeny colour. Lots of blue in it. I just want to put the trees over here. Lights coming that way. Shadow on that side. And a little bit of I'll put another little tree over there. So there we've got that. having a little look at it now. Blast that. Fingers in ears. I'm going to use the smaller one of these. Because that's not a very big building. Okay. Purple. Alizarin crimson and blue. Touch of brown. And there you've got a slaty colour. Now that is actually a sort of pinky colour, so I'll mix some light red into that colour. Keep it very thin. Nice sharp line underneath there, a smidge of blue, a sort of shadowy bit on that side, and I'll fiddle around with that bit more after. Back in with the Hake. Raw sienna and lemon yellow. I'm using that very luscious in places just to give it some depth. Now time to do this bit of water. For that, clean up my palette again. I usually use a bigger tray than this, but I've got it charged up with different colours. So I'm fiddling in a little mixing area with a big brush. There. Got rid of that. Clean water. This needs to be a nice clean sky wash. I might have to faff around up there. Now, next thing to do is put some leaves on that tree. A nice, fairly strong green. Actually, before I put the leaves on, I'll give it some more branches. Nice dark colour with the Payne's Grey and the burnt umber. When you use a rigger, let the brush do the work. Give that a sort of second trunk. I don't know what sort of tree that is, but it tends to jump out a bit like a fan. Now, while that's drying, I'll put some stuff in the foreground here. Now, you don't need much detail in a foreground, or you end up just looking at the foreground. So, need to replenish my raw sienna. There's lots of dark lumpy bits of rock here that we don't really need to put any detail in. Okay, that should be more or less dry now. My green colour, blue, lemon yellow. Just touch that brush into the water. Now just using the corner of the hake, tidying it up. A little bit of blue, the shadowy bits. I'll put some more tree bits over this side. Little bushy bits. Okay, we've got that. Now I do need a new hake, sad but true. Okay, now Just going to try and put a little bit of a ruffle on that water. Now that's just clean water. Now dry the brush almost completely. I left it too dry before I started. Now thirsty hake. And there goes a little bit of a ruffle. Could be better, but I should have done it while that water was still slightly damp. Same with the reflection, should have gone in when it was damp. Faffing. Right, all I'm going to do with that now, if I can find my rigger, put some mad grasses in the foreground, light red, umber, the last thing I want to do is put some shadow down the side of that. Nice deep purple. Just under the eave, Payne's grey. Never use Payne's grey on its own. Payne's grey with a touch of alizarin to warm it up. It's a really nice dark. Okay, couple more fiddles with the rigger, and then I'm going to knock it on the head. Taken too long and I've faffed. Right, okay, I'm going to leave that. It's not the best painting I've ever done. I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to put a little bit more definition on that sticky up bit. Right, okay. And there we have a little moorland scene. Call it pond or something of that ilk. They're a bit hard, mechanical. Just soften them out a bit. Let's put some darks. There we go. When that's dry, it might be worth looking at. If not, we'll just put it in the bin. I think I'll probably have another go at a similar type of picture tomorrow. I'm really enjoying playing with these Hakes, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of laughs. People of a certain age may notice. There. Now I am faffing, I'll leave that. No, I must, maybe I can just salvage it. Because what's not happening is there's no shadow there. Just mix a shadowy colour with this square brush. Things bed down a little bit better like that. Yep. I didn't do shadows. see how that makes such a difference? Maybe you don't, but I do. Okay. Stop faffing, Evans. Say good night to the nice people. Good night, nice people. Right, I'm just adding a little bit to the end of this because I really couldn't live with the roof as it was. So you may notice the roof has magically changed colour. All I did with the roof was I wet it with the square brush, just totally soaked it, got a tissue, pulled all the colour right off, and then went over with a very, very thin wash of alizarin crimson and burnt umber. So I'm a lot happier with that now, because it makes the building stand out that much more. Okay, right, that is the end of this one. Thank you very much. Bye bye.